Hi there. Today we are talking about applying for a visa stamp in your passport at a U.S. consulate or embassy overseas. This is for people who have received approval for a work visa, non-immigrant visa category with USCIS typically. Then when it's time to travel to the U.S., they have to go to a consulate to get that visa stamped in their passport. That visa stamp is what allows them to enter the United States. There are lots of rules regarding this, and one of the kind of recent ways they process these is through what's called an interview waiver. So normally the requirement for anyone entering the US is they have to go through an interview in person at a consulate to get the visa. However, due to the large number of applications, especially at certain consulates, they've realized that it may not be practicable for everyone to come in for an in-person interview. So there are certain cases where they waive the interview requirement, and we call that Dropbox, where you basically drop off your paperwork in a box at a application center. They review everything, stamp your passport, and then you pick up your passport that has the stamp in it. My name is Emily Newman. I'm the managing partner of Reddy Neumann Brown P.C. With me is partner Stephen Brown. We are one of Houston's largest immigration law firms focused solely on employment-based immigration, and we have an update about this visa waiver or interview waiver Dropbox option. So Stephen, what's going on with this today?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it seems a very overnight, no announcement, no fanfare update to a lot of consulates. So each embassy, each mission to a country, so the Department of State, mission India, mission Mexico, whatever it is, gets to kind of set their rules within certain parameters that the Department of State sets through the Secretary of State. And going back to, 2022, 2021, they had kind of expanded this program quite a bit. It was 1 year, then it was 2 years, then it was 4 years, and there was different rules about which visas allow you to apply for Dropbox, which visa you had to have, when it had to expire. And we started seeing some communication on social media about U.S. travel documents, which is the website the State Department uses for visa interviews and everything, update for a number of missions, including Mission India, to get rid of the 4-year expansion that many places were doing, especially during the height of COVID and the backlog for Dropbox, and making it only 1 year. And again, no official announcement on Department of State. It's just you go onto U.S. travel documents, you go to Mission India, I saw Mission Australia, couple others, and it says, only 1 year for Dropbox.
So when you talk about this 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, and now we're back to 1 year, this is for people who are renewing a visa. So you've already gotten a visa in the past, traveled to the United States, been here for some time, maybe you extended your status in the United States, and now you need to travel again. So because that prior visa has expired, you have to renew the visa. And so that time period we're talking about is how long ago did your previous visa expire? So up until yesterday, if that previous visa expired anytime within the last 4 years, you could go under this special renewal process and waive the interview so that you don't have to appear in person at the consulate. But overnight, that 4 years dropped down to 1 year. So if your visa that you previously had expired more than 1 year ago, now everybody in that situation has to go in for an in-person interview. So what does this do for processing at the consulates for people who need to renew their visas? Is this going to be more efficient or less efficient?
Yeah, I don't know where's Doge on this one, right? Because this is a much less efficient process. With the Dropbox, you go in, you've done your DS-160, and you go in, you do your biometrics, drop off some documents, and you're done. Like, that's it, right? Now everybody's going to have interviews for these if it's more than the 1 year. So 4 times the amount of people, because we've reduced it from 4 years to 1, that your visa has expired. will have to go for interviews, and those take more manpower. That takes more time. That takes more, organization and them having appointments open. And Emily, I saw some rumors, and again, I haven't been able to confirm, but I saw some people saying that they had Dropbox appointments and they're getting noticed that it was canceled.
Yeah, I've been hearing that as well, and not really getting any kind of advance notice or reason why. Just told there is no Dropbox appointment for you anymore. It does appear that people are able to reschedule an actual interview after 24 hours or something like that without having to pay the DS-160 visa application fee again. So that was generous of them. But the problem is we already were having a hard time with people getting interview slots. So when we had this expanded interview waiver option, fewer people required interviews. And even with fewer people requiring interviews, there were not enough interview slots for everybody who needed an interview. So some people would have to wait weeks, months for an interview appointment. I mean, B visas, visitors, business visas, a year to get an interview to get a visa. I mean, who plans out their travel more than a year in advance to be able to get this visa? And now we are, as you said, almost quadrupling the number of people that are going to have to come in for an interview without any additional manpower. I'm sure there's no additional budget for this. So they're not going to provide more interview slots. It's just going to mean people are going to have to wait longer to get an interview. So before you even leave the US, you need to make sure that you complete all that process, get your interview slot. And then once you're there, the processing of the visa itself might be more delayed. So even with the interview waiver, at many consulates, they would say you need to plan for at least 3 weeks to get your passport back when an interview is not required. Imagine what it will be with an interview actually required. It may take even longer to get the passport back. People are going to be stranded outside the US waiting for this. And then we've also got the Trump administration's kind of overall agenda of extreme vetting when it comes to immigration, legal immigration. So consular officers are likely to be scrutinizing all of these interview requests even more. So more visa denials may happen, more administrative processing, which is where they basically refuse your visa and say, we're still working on it. We're looking into something. We'll get back to you. And then it goes into a black hole for weeks and sometimes months. I think we're going to see more and more of that. It's also referred to as a 221G. So with these changes, with no announcement, as you mentioned, with the extreme vetting that there's not really an announcement for, there hasn't really been a executive order on that. It's just that's the Trump agenda. I think, as we've said before, now is not the time to travel if you need a visa stamp. So there are some situations where maybe you have to because of a status issue, or maybe you're getting married or something like that. Totally understand that. But non-essential travel, if you need a visa stamp, should be completely avoided for the next 4 years, sadly, which really impacts businesses who might need people to be able to move around to different offices, impacts people's family relationships. People might miss major family milestones, births, deaths, marriages, all those things that we kind of take for granted that we are able to do with our family here in the US. But if you have family abroad, you really need to think twice about going to visit if you need a new visa stamp.
Yeah, and I would say, there's two other takeaways on, I guess 3 other takeaways to take on this. Number one, hopefully we see something on the domestic processing. No word yet from, Secretary Rubio or anything. It's early. We will see. Number 2, I mean, again, I know everybody talks about us immigration lawyers being scare tactics and all of that, and that's not what we're here for. Our job's to let you know what the situation is. I mean, this changed people's plans without any sort of warning or announcement, and can happen like this. And so you need to, we're going to give this guidance here so you can take this into consideration if you do have to travel, and then weigh the pros and cons. And maybe work out plans with your employer about working abroad, if you get stuck. And then number 3, and outside of visa stamping, but for those that have their advanced parole. We always get this question, well, should I maintain my non-immigrant status or just get married to the green card and use my advanced parole? I mean, I think now's a good time that if you have to travel, just use the advanced parole instead of trying to go for visa stamping.
All right, well, we hope you found this information helpful, and we will continue to provide updates and any breaking news as it happens. We do expect these types of things to come up unexpectedly over the next 4 years. We dealt with the same during the prior Trump administration. So we'll be here to keep you informed. Thanks for joining.